India is the only country in the world, only film industry in the world where the male lead of a film is called a hero. No others.
Everybody is called an actor.
It's called an actor,
Yes.
right? It's an actor in a film. But in India, it's not an actor, it's a hero.
So I used to say things like, don't cry like a girl.
Yeah.
I'm not like other girls. As if being like other girls is like an embarrassment. I'm smarter than other girls.
Embarrassment. As in
It is
crying
not.
wrong.
Yeah.
And again, I'm telling you, so it all started there. Naghma, we've all started at such a level. No child is born with gender norms inside of them.
Yeah.
It's nature versus nurture, no? It is what we inculcate into them. We will tell boys and girls that men cannot cry and women can cry, but we won't tell boys and girls that women go through shit with their bodies that men will not go through, and that's a huge privilege. We constantly talk about toxic masculinity, and it is very important to talk about it. But what is the alternate to that?
Empathetic masculinity has to be demonstrated.
Yeah, but we don't even have that conversation.
No,
We don't have give me an example of what the other thing looks like, and how much are we going to talk about why everything is crude.
Welcome to this episode of Three at the Table, where we bring real, meaningful conversations about women, leadership, and the allies who support them. Today, we have someone who has been a loud and proud advocate for mental health, gender equality, and the power of storytelling, Nikhil Taneja. Nikhil wears many hats. He is the co-founder of Yuvaa, a youth-driven media and impact organization that's all about amplifying young voices and tracking issues that really matter. Whether it's mental health, gender equality, or social change, Nikhil has been at the forefront using storytelling to spark important conversations. But what makes this conversation even more special is his unwavering commitment to being a male ally. In a world where gender equality is still a work in progress, having strong allies, especially men who actively challenge status quo, is so important. From championing young women in media to creating open, safe spaces for dialogue, Nikhil is helping shape a more inclusive and empathetic world. Today, we are going to talk about allyship, representation, and the role men can play in fostering gender equality, especially in workplaces and beyond. So let's go. Nikhil, welcome to Three at the Table.
Thank you so much, Naghma.
Thank you so much for joining us. And I know how important your time is, and you've given it to us. So I'm going to use this hour very diligently.
I really appreciate you for saying that. I don't think my life is that important. And even if I had to use it, what better way than to sit across you? I've heard so much about the work you do, and really grateful to be here.
Thank you. I also give you some context. I lead EdelGive. EdelGive works. One of our big agendas is how to bridge philanthropy gaps. Yeah. How to get money where causes are needed. And two of the causes that are very close to our heart are gender and climate. Yeah. And over the decade, what I've learned and what the foundation has learned is that while we can say patriarchy, social norms, and all the subjugation of women, everything is something we need to fight, we also have to acknowledge that first victims, or at least equally being a victim of patriarchy, is the man. And they are worse off for it because first is acknowledgement is weak. And therefore, what you can't even acknowledge, how will you even address? And now in this entire world where there's so much noise, there is an overexposure of some things, there is an over-communication of many things, and nuance is at its all-time low. When I first saw you bringing important, powerful people, giving them the mic, and then getting them to open up in the most vulnerable, beautiful ways, that for me was precious. So I want to begin with really acknowledging how important these conversations are. And when you get powerful people to open up, you're also getting so many good role model behaviors trickling down. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Now, when something like this happens, Nikhil, and I want to start just from there,
sure,
it definitely is intentional. But it's so rare. We wish, but you did it. How was it to even engineer? From identifying that something like this is really needed to really getting it done, because you need partners in crime for this. So how did this journey work for you?
So there is, I always don't know how to answer this question in a short way, because there's so much that has gone behind this.
No, it doesn't have to be short.
Intentionality, as you call it, right?
Yeah.
So some of it really comes from direct stuff that I've seen with the work that I do, right? So while, of course, I've spent before I started Yuvaa, about 10 years in the entertainment industry. I used to be at Hindustan Times, MTV, Yash Raj. And the way that we have how men are portrayed and how women are portrayed in content and films and media, I always saw a huge discrepancy, a big gap in the way that we understand or are sensitive to the portrayals of gender. If the man is a hero, India is the only country in the world, only film industry in the world where the male lead of a film is called a hero. No others.
Everybody is called an actor.
It's called an actor,
Yes.
right? It's an actor in a film. But in India, it's not an actor, it's a hero. Hero kaun hai picture ka? And if you are making like the man's character heroic, then everybody else is somebody that needs to be saved, or needs to be beaten. So who is typically saved? It's the woman. And the woman's job in society is
to be saved.
Yeah, it is. Her literal role in films for the longest time has been either the object of affection or the object of lust, or for that matter, an object of somebody else's lust that the hero will take revenge over.
Correct.
So then a woman is being harassed, assaulted, raped, and then the hero's journey begins to being heroic.
Yeah.
So that's how we have treated gender in films, right? And I would see that day in and day out as I was part of the film industry. On the weekends, I used to teach at a college in Mumbai called Jai Hind College, where I was teaching. I was a professor of journalism and news reporting. For 7 years, I taught in those colleges. And again, I would see the gaps, the disparity in the way that conversations with men are and women are just absolutely huge to me, right? And this actually led me to, and I'll come to what that was, and it led me to starting Yuvaa. And with Yuvaa for the last now 6.5 years, I've been to over 150 campuses in India. I have met over 15,000 students at this point of time in person. We do something called the Yuvaa Roadshow of Kindness, where we create these safe spaces for young people to express themselves without judgment. And a lot of the conversations end up being about gender and mental health. Those are also passion areas of myself because of the things I've gone through in my life. But also because that is the number one thing that young people want to talk about. They want to talk about gender. They want to talk about mental health. Gender, of course, is women a lot more than men. When I would start listening in these spaces, the number one thing that women in our country, including the students that I had, and then across India, north, south, east, west, northeast, you go anywhere, right? Center India. And you would hear women constantly talk about harassment as the number one issue that they face. 18 to 22.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Any part of the country, 18 to 22 students, you could be in an arts college, in a commerce college, in an engineering college. That was always the number one thing. If it wasn't direct harassment, it was related to it in some way, or it was always about identity as a woman in society, right? I would even call harassment of women speaking up and saying that in my own home, I am told that I should not be dark, I should be fair.
Yes.
Because that's the only way that I will have worth and value in society, because a man would then
value you and take you for some role or the other.
And marry me, right? I find that also harassment in some way, right?
Absolutely.
That happens at the home level. And then, of course, societal level with men, it's a whole different thing. What men would talk about, which is also first it was shocking to me, and then after a point of time, it kind of became like a new normal. And this is after many layers, of chipping away, where you're trying to really get to the core of what they're trying to say. But then the pattern started to emerge, and the pattern was loneliness. It was the number one thing that most men were speaking of. They didn't have people to listen to them. They didn't have people to, who gave them spaces to express themselves. They felt judged. They felt not accepted by their own parents, sometimes by society at large. I've had young people come up to me and tell me that I have never been told I love you by my parents. I have boys telling me I have not received a hug in my life ever. Imagine that, right? Just a boy coming up to me. And this is a true incident that has happened to me. In fact, I just did a talk about this at Spoken Fest very recently, which is a boy once came up to me and said that, can I have a hug? And I said, sure. I gave him a hug. And then he kept that embrace for a bit. And then I asked, I said, like, it's a very unusual thing that people don't typically in a campus spaces say, can I have a hug? And he then told me that I have never in my life received a hug before this. This is my first hug in life.
That is so sad.
Can you imagine?
That is so sad, heartbreaking.
And he's like, after the conversation we had, I felt that I could ask you for it. But I've not felt that I could ask any other man for a hug.
So there's an absence of safe spaces for men in ways that don't even
come
for
everybody, right? Safe spaces are absent for everybody.
Yes.
What we understand about women and the spaces they are lacking is now, even if you're not doing anything about it, it's not that we are changing anything, but at least we now have a slight more understanding about what women going through in our society. With men, we don't even have that understanding because men don't want to have that conversation, because they don't understand, and the men who are in power don't want to have that conversation, because the moment men become empathetic, the capitalist power structure collapses.
Embarrasses them.
Yeah, it collapses. People will not work to the moment men. Why people attacking the word woke? Because the moment men start having feelings, the first feeling will be about, why am I working 24/7 for you, to earn money for you? That's the first feeling that is going to happen in society. And then what happens to billionaires?
Yes.
So it's a larger. But
you're coming to the crux of the problem, because when we deal with adult women as well as adult men, we see these, whatever they have not been having all their early years play out in their workspaces, in their marriages, in their relationships with everyone. And these scars and we are almost like generationally, we are just passing this on from places to places. So when we talk about, incidentally, men are perceived, they are supposed to be not vulnerable. And I'm speaking from a woman's point of view.
Absolutely, yeah.
But we also keep talking about the bro club, where, the bros meet and then they get things done.
Yeah.
What I have realized, and you should correct me, is that that's very transactional. Like the bro club works to get something done, but not to talk about what they feel or what they're going through or anything of real consequence.
Yeah. So, the way I'll answer this is, I do the experiment in colleges where I ask young people, tell me what comes to your mind when I say the word mother. What's the first word that comes to your mind? Can you guess what that word is?
Like care, love.
That's the first word. Most, again, across the country.
Yeah.
Now, guess what the first word is when it comes to father?
Respect.
Close.
Okay. Authority.
Close.
Oh, okay. Power.
Anger.
No.
It's anger. Like, I've heard respect, I've heard discipline, I've heard fear, but more often than not, I've heard anger. Now, imagine this. Their first understanding of gender at home, any child, mother, woman, love, empathy, care. Father, man, discipline, respect, fear, anger, authority. If this is your understanding of what gender is when it comes to man and when it comes to women, as you grow up in life, how do you look at other genders also is changes in the way, right? It's your perspective keeps building and shaping. Of course, sometimes these ideas break. These stereotypes shatter. There could be women and, who are not as kind or as empathetic to them.
Absolutely.
And there could be men who are nurturing. But more often than not, this is society we live in where the emotional labor of being kind, empathetic, caring falls on the woman.
Yes.
And the man has been trained and conditioned to be distant. Why? Because the man has to go and work and provide. And the moment he starts being less distant, he can't actually do that work. And in a lot of spaces in our society, it's a genuine problem that, so much of our society is in India is under the poverty line. So the man genuinely just needs to put food on the table. But we still, even when, there have been families in the middle class and upwards, which have now far crossed that threshold, these conditioning and stereotypes and gender norms still remain. Absolutely. You don't need them anymore.
Absolutely.
The mother is also earning as much as the father is. And yet the mother has to, after finishing work, come back home and cook and clean and take care of the next day's breakfast for the child. And the father then comes home and, watches the news, and typically which is misinformation and disinformation at this point of time, or just says that I'm really tired. Like as if the woman hasn't, has worked or been equally tired.
But this stereotype and these roles and responsibilities, the fun fact is that they are lesser so in the underprivileged. They are even more prominent in the affluent class. It's not an India problem, it's a global problem.
Absolutely.
It's not a race problem. So suddenly, in the face of power and stereotypes, suddenly it becomes man, woman, and not American, Indian, UK.
No, you're absolutely right.
It is everywhere.
And interestingly, why is it underprivileged that they have to do away with gender norms sometimes? Because it's all hands on deck.
Yeah, they have different problems.
Sure.
They have different problems of gender norms, which are horrible.
Absolutely.
But there is no excuse for us who are educated, who have exposure, who have access, and who still, follow the same paths that have been going on that have completely not served us so far.
Yeah. It's not served women. Yeah. It served the men, and that's also the reason why these norms don't change.
Yeah.
Because when you see why we put so much of the onus on equality, and this is a thing that I have now been even more cognizant of in the last few years when my role in this space has been increasing in some way because of the work that I do. So I am now invited to forums, and it could be international forums, it is prestigious forums, UN forums, and I go to these conferences on gender equality, and there are 20 people in a room, and 18 of them are women.
Yes.
And I'm one of the token men out of the two, right? And for me, I'm just like, my big thing is that if there is only one man who already talks about gender equality in a forum about gender equality, and there is no other men listening, how are you going to achieve it?
Absolutely.
If you are putting the onus of equality only on women and saying, hey, you have been oppressed, but now it is upon you to change things about your oppression, how would they do that if, the oppressed class is not involved, right?
Absolutely.
And so and again, and I'm not at all over here because a lot of men kind of take this wrongly and I get a lot of hate for this. So this is not at all. My show is in fact about empathy towards men.
Yes.
Right? It's about, why men also require safe spaces. But empathy cannot come without accountability.
Yes.
You can't just be like, oh, I feel for you, which I do. I feel for myself as a man, right? At the same time, I have to acknowledge that the reason that I've also had to go through whatever hardship in life is because the world is overall broken and gender norms are overall broken. If my mother is empowered, that will also empower my father. If I empower my partner as a man who has more agency and has been given more agency in a society, then she will also empower me. And I'll give you a very, simple example of this, right? 8 years ago, I was diagnosed with clinical anxiety. It got terrible for me to a point where I realized after therapy that I needed to take a sabbatical from my career. It's a very privileged thing to even say sabbatical in a career. What kind of a person are you that you don't require money per month? You don't have a monthly. I didn't have that many savings. Of course, I still had parents who were happy to give me money if I needed it. But the reason I was able to take the decision was because I had a conversation with my wife where I said, listen, I need some time. I don't know how much time that is. I don't know what I'm going through and I need your support.
Yeah.
And she immediately said, you don't worry. For the next whatever months it is, I will run the home.
Yes.
And she did it. And for 6 months, I took that time off and that led me to starting Yuvaa. But if I did not have my wife's support at that point of time, I would not have been able to start Yuvaa.
And that is such a beautiful symphony that gets created if you if you step out of what must be and what should be and what people will say or think and work in partnership. And I believe the purpose of having male, female and any other gender and how the maker has created us is because we need to fit in with each other, not become each other.
Absolutely. And so well said.
Yeah, we have to fit in with each other. There's place for all of us in the scheme of things. The scheme of things is too big. So this whole fight on I need to be this kind and you need to be that kind and you need to serve and I need your servitude is unnecessary. And yes, power makes things happen. And you have, as a journalist and as someone who worked in media over decades, seen this up close and personal.
Yeah.
You've seen it play out in young people, in careers, in offices. And you've also seen I think we are that generation that has seen the turn of not just century, but like many, many things, what it was in the 80s, then 90s, then 2000s, now it feels like every 2 years, the world is changing. But in all of that, for you to anchor into what you can do best to serve this gap, I found that to be a remarkable thing because you took your power of storytelling, your power of engaging with different kinds of young people and older people, and you brought it to this point. So if we for 1 minute, stay with Yuvaa. Okay. At what point did your that time of clinical anxiety actually provoke you to say, no, there's something I need to do for structurally, or where did it begin then?
Honestly, it is both Yuvaa and Bia Man, yaar, as much as they have, and I'm very grateful for that as much as they are impacting other people, they are, and it's not to say that I did not have that as an intention. Of course I did. I wanted to make sure that what we do creates an impact, but they all started as, so to speak, very selfish endeavors, right? I knew that I am not going to be able to function if I am not able to do something in a way that creates circumstances for me to function well. As an example, when I had anxiety, I couldn't, for the longest time, get myself to go to a therapist because of the fear of judgment, not from anybody else, but from my own mind. I'm a man. I cannot be broken.
Yeah.
If I admit to myself that there are things in me that are broken, I can't live with that idea.
I'm a lesser man.
I'm not enough. And you are spending most of your life. See, it also comes from when you're younger, sometimes it's your parents saying throwaway things which make you feel lesser. You don't realize it at that time. But I'm not talking about my parents, I'm saying all parents sometimes are just saying things that, again, that start chipping away at your self-respect, at your self-worth, at your understanding of self. And then you start believing that I am not enough. And at some point of time, then you put up a wall. That wall you try to kind of go along with for as much and as long as you can. And you don't want anybody to come and, again, poke at that wall because it's taken so much trauma to get to that place. And then when something like this happens, where, essentially you break, and the wall has to now come down, then you're in a place of so much hurt that at that point of time, for anything else, that if anybody comes and tells you, oh, you need help, you cannot, that almost feels like somebody now throwing a hammer at you. When it was typically someone saying that,
you saw what I was going through, which is not okay.
Absolutely. You don't want anybody else to recognize vulnerability in you because you're afraid of that vulnerability, because when you were vulnerable at one point of time as a child, you were told that that's not okay, especially if you're a boy. If as a boy, and it's not just at home, it's at school, it's everywhere else. I have had at school places where I have been sensitive, and I remember so clearly in a group of boys and girls sitting together, and we playing some stupid game, and I remember I get hurt and I reflexively cry, and I remember a girl telling me, and this is when I'm like 6 years old, I'm not talking about like a 6 or 7 years old, and there's a girl telling me in that group that, why you acting like a girl? Imagine the self-hatred she has at 6, where she thinks that crying is what girls do. And she's telling a boy, oh, you are a boy, you can't cry like a girl. And I am taking it from other girls thinking, yeah, she's right. I'm a boy, I can't cry like a girl.
No, but that girl is me also. So I used to say things like, don't cry like a girl. I'm not like other girls. as if being like other girls is like an embarrassment. I'm smarter than other girls.
Is, embarrassment. As in
it is not.
Is wrong.
And
again, I'm telling you, so it all started there. We've all started at such a level. Nobody, no child is born with gender norms inside of them. It's nature versus nurture, no? It is what we inculcate into them.
Correct.
Of course, the bodies of men and women are different, and that's where nature plays a role. Men don't go through menstruation. Women go through menstruation. At the same time, do men have an understanding of what happens with women through menstruation? No, we don't. And the reason we don't have it is because those are the conversations we don't have.
We
will tell boys and girls that men cannot cry and women can cry, but we won't tell boys and girls that women go through shit with their bodies that men will not go through, and that's a huge privilege. And you need to understand that, because you so as to be supportive human beings. Forget supportive as genders.
Absolutely.
Anybody going through something, even when men go through puberty, I would imagine that you should create sensitive environments, because boys don't know what's happening to their body. We don't talk about these things.
We don't talk about it.
So all of these have a ripple effect, which is where it comes down to, and I started realizing that during my anxiety, and as I said, I think therapy really helped me to get to a place where I started being more comfortable. I was a very different person pre-therapy, post-therapy. My life has changed by therapy. Therapy has been genuinely turned me into a better person, a more empathetic person. Forget to everybody else to myself. The other thing that has changed my life is teaching. So just being able to be with young people and create spaces where I also listen to them and not just always talking about. I get to do a lot of talking here, but in my classrooms I do a lot of listening. And just encourage them to talk. And when you hear young people and you hear what they have to say about the world, it also makes you more empathetic, because you realize that, man, as I said, I think there's so much that is wrong fundamentally about how we operate as a society. And if we are not acknowledging of that, and if we are not doing anything about that, how will anything change? In my case, I broke. And when I decided that I took the accountability and the decision to help fix myself, I realized now, if I don't want to be in this position again. And if that means that I need to create something that helps me ensure that I'm creating a better world for myself. And then, of course, as a ripple effect of people around me, that's what I would like to dedicate my life to.
There are two such important things that are coming out of this. One is what people say, but you have demonstrated and you're talking about, is that you can't care for others till you fixed yourself. That is fundamental. And that goes for the men as well as for the women.
Everybody,
it's not a gender thing. While different genders have different pressure points, if you can't fix yourself, there is no fixing the world around you. That's a very big one. The other thing that keeps popping out, and even when you're speaking of, is when we look at adults who are behaving in a certain way and we want to fix something, we have to go and see what we're doing to the young people. And when we look at young people and we talk to them, you realize how much can fundamentally be prevented simply by fixing our homes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I like to say this, that whatever, what your home is in a capsule is demonstrated on your dining table. The dining table talks. Whether you eat together or not, who's serving, who's picking, who's eating last, who's eating first, everything.
Absolutely.
And everything is encapsulated on the dining table. So if we have to really, really fix something, we have to all observe our own homes and say what happens on my dining table. And we'll be surprised by how much it exposes ourselves. And I say this particularly because of you. See, for you to break, to identify what was wrong with you, I hope lesser people have to go through it to that degree. But a lot of our problems fix themselves in our homes, if we should want them to be fixed. So what you're doing actually, and why I love Yuvaa, is you are fixing the next generation of dining table owners.
I mean, I appreciate you saying that. I don't know if you're able to fix it right now, but again, I think our job is to at least raise awareness about that. Fixing, as you said, I think it's in all our individual hands. I hope there are enough people who are taking inspiration to do something about this. But I feel like what we can, especially as media folks, what we can definitely do is talk about this. The conversation is not being had.
Correct.
And that just genuinely worries me, because the narratives don't change if new narratives are not set.
Correct.
How do you challenge narratives if you don't even know that there is alternates available? And Yuvaa needs to be that alternate. Be a man, yaar. Ultimately, actually, you had asked me that question also, I never answered it. But for me to create Be a Man, yaar was to give an example to the boys who are saying, I'm lonely. You are in one classroom, and this is actually happened. This is again just like the stuff that I've learned after meeting young people. You would have young women come in classrooms full of people, 150 people. A girl comes on stage, talks about what I'm going through. And then at the end of that says, but today I'm able to talk about it because she's my best friend. She's so amazing. Because of her, I've survived. I love you. I can't do without you, best friend. And then the best friend comes, hugs her, and it's beautiful. It's like so many hugs on stage we've seen among the girls. You would have in a classroom, same classroom, okay? One boy coming and very quietly talking about, I'm very lonely. No one comes to hug him. He doesn't say there's somebody for me. He goes. Another boy comes 2 weeks later saying, I'm also lonely. Now you ask these boys after a point of time, both of you are saying that you're lonely. Why are you not talking to each other?
Because I'm a man here.
But वो पता ही नहीं उनको, कॉन्सेप्ट ही नहीं है, कैसे करूं मैं बात? मुझे तो एक तो पता ही नहीं था कि ये lonely है.
Correct.
First of all, I don't even know even he's lonely. Second of all, I'm afraid that he's going to judge me, because again, as I came back to the concept that in my father, if I ever express myself vulnerably in front of my father, मुझे डांट पड़ती थी. I used to get disciplined. I used to get, slapped. I used to whatever. Right? So you don't want to open up in front of a man. So again, they don't have examples.
Yeah.
And Be a Man here also came with that idea. We need examples.
Yeah.
We constantly talk about toxic masculinity, and it is very important to talk about it. But what is the alternate to that?
Empathetic masculinity has to be demonstrated.
Yeah, but we don't even have that conversation.
No, you don't.
We don't have like give me an example of what the other thing looks like, and how much are we going to talk about why everything is screwed. Yes. But what now?
Yeah, what now?
So what?
तो हम क्या करेंगे?
आप क्या कर सकते हो उसके बारे में?
Correct.
कुछ तो करो ना. And we are saying let's start with conversation to even say that here's what it can look like.
Yeah. Now, while this is a very important thing, you're also running businesses. You are running a company. It's a media company. Okay. I particularly want to emphasize on that, because so to blend social cause awareness and something that is so beautiful with actually profit, responding to investors, okay, in a market of, where toxicity sells. We finally, why is this whole, never-ending cycle only aggravating us? Because there are industries built to ensure they happen. Usme you are running this venture. Okay. How does it survive? What are the impediments, or how does that survive? Like what has your experience been?
See, today, fortunately, Touchwood, it's in a very good place. So there's no survival fight now. It's actually about growth now. We're scaling. So we're in a much, much better position. Of course, it took us time to get to the USP, or at least tell the world how explain or sell our USP, right? So interestingly, Be a Man Yaar, I wrote those 4 words after I finished my second roadshow across India, which was just before the pandemic. Which was in 2020, early 2020, January. I remember coming back from the first leg of the roadshow and writing on my board, Be a Man. Yeah. It took me 3.5 years after that to be able to make it a reality. And the reason it took me, because I did not find the money. I would go and tell the same everybody. I would tell them what I want to do. They didn't get it. Brands didn't get it. Sponsors didn't get it. Nobody truly got it. They were like, oh, okay, sounds interesting. But, I would say I'll get Karan Johar. Even fortunately, I had some access. As I'll get you names.
But
but healthy masculinity hota kya hai? Kaun sunega? Blah, blah, blah. We eventually did Be a Man Yaar when we were in a place where we had made enough money to be able to put it on our own. We made it on our own. And then when the trailer launched, and you will not believe it, within 2 weeks of the trailer, we had so many sponsors on the show that not only did we make the initial investment back, but we made profits on it.
Yeah.
2 weeks after the trailer launched. Yeah. But I had to wait for 3.5 years before I could actually put together my dream show, because I realized that the time is not right, or people not understanding. So you have to play the long game, right? And the Yuvaa also, it's been that long game. When we started off, very, and fortunately, again, I really admire my co-founders. We have, we've had pre-seed investment. We not really had like a proper investment at this point of time. And everybody who's family and friends round, so to speak, everybody has been so supportive to the time and care we have given to grow Yuvaa. Nobody forced us to grow it quicker than it needed to be. And because we had the time, and I wanted to give it that time, and I needed that time to be able to find out the core of this and how to make this work for a society. So we have had to plant those seeds. Every day you have to get up, show to work, and talk about mental health, talk about gender, then figure out a way to make it interesting. So initially, I think a lot of our company was just empathetic. And then 2 years, 3 years, it took us to actually come to our tagline, which is now our most important. It's a mission statement now. It is that we make important things interesting, because if we don't, then the interesting things end up becoming important.
Oh, wow.
So and now we are very clear. What do we do? Why do we do it. And now this has become very easy to explain to people. And fortunately, it was the social impact sector that first lapped up and said that, we need someone to bridge the gap between important issues and accessibility of those issues. And because we worked with young people, we understood those gaps and we were able to create content around those gaps. And thanks to the help of the social impact sector, once we started putting out our work, the work fortunately was good enough as proof of concept would work, because young people need this, because they've not had that. We always assume that something is going to fail because it doesn't exist. Once it starts existing and people see, oh, ye bhi hota hai kya? They lap it up. I always find it incredibly fun and as a nugget that Be a Man Yaar released in the same year as Animal. About 2 months apart.
My favorite topic.
It's 2 months apart. So you had the most toxic film in Indian film history, and you had whatever, a very wholesome thing about men's masculinity, and both have their audience. They just didn't know that this we know has always existed and will continue to exist. And, there's no bravery here in showing men as horrible. Great, congratulations. But this is, I would say, if there's any credit that I would say, is it is radical to have, men being emotional and vulnerable.
Absolutely. It's absolutely radical. Like as an observer and as someone who's been doing this constantly, what do you think is the reason something like Animal works? Like, as an audience, I have many perspectives. I'm talking about, you're in the machinery of it. Okay. What is it that appeals to so many people?
It's a long answer, but I will try to cut it short and I tell you. A lot of the men in our country are lost. Okay. We spoke about loneliness that boys talk about. What do we do about this loneliness? As I said, we don't have next steps. When girls say we are harassed as a society, now at least we're talking. Again, I'm saying it's an imperfect system.
No, but yes, I agree with you.
Let's do something about girls' safety. Everybody is saying girl safety, very good.
बोल तो रहे
कर नहीं रहे हैं अभी भी, वो बहुत बड़ी problem है, but बोल तो रहे हैं. Boys' loneliness, boys are speaking in an echo chamber when nobody else is there. They're talking to themselves. I'm lonely. Okay, great. What do? I don't know. तुम काम करो, तुम पैसे कमाओ. So, because they are been abandoned, young boys, to their own devices, कि तुम करो अपना, तुम देखो अपना. अब वो क्या करें इस loneliness का? उसके ऊपर now you add unemployment, you add poverty, you add all of this petri dish of what our country is, and what our culture is. And as they feel lost, now they need something to kind of, where do they find community? Now what has happened is, because I think liberal progressive people have failed to showcase a community to young boys. It is the regressive, conservative, a lot of them being right-wing, coming in, swooping in and saying, we'll give you community. And what is that community built on? When you don't have something to fight towards, you find something to fight against. So, hey, why don't you hate on this religion? Why don't you hate on this gender? Why don't you hate on this community? Why don't you hate on this ecosystem? Anything. You keep them occupied by giving them things to hate.
Yes.
So that they don't ask the bigger questions about, why am I lonely? Why don't I have a job? Why am I still poor when I work as hard as anybody else who claims to be rich and say, अरे मैं तो काम करके बड़ा हूँ. नहीं, तुम्हारे पास privilege है, तुम इसलिए rich हो. It's not because you have like done something radical. So that's why places,
like these things work.
That's why, I'll say this as gently as possible. That's why filmmakers like Sandeep Vanga Reddy, who are very sharp minds, know that gap. And they use the gap to their advantage. Their personal politics could also be this great. But they know that this politics, if they put out there, they will get in a crowd of people when they spout dialogues about what men are supposed to be and how they're supposed to be. The boys who are lost will look at that and say, I have found my purpose. When you show scenes of like aggressive masculinity and a bunch of men, sea of men looking at that aggressive man and saying, he's our God, he's our hero. You know that is also going to be replicated, because if you don't know how to address the issues of society with empathy, you throw passion at people and they just need that distraction. So it's a beautiful distraction. He's a fantastic filmmaker. He knows how to create a good story. And it's just that he's using a very troubling politics to complement his genuinely good storytelling skills, and that's how you get something like Animal.
Yes.
But it is I mean, again, and I said, I think we just, unfortunately, a thing like that works even more because there's not enough options of the alternative.
Yeah. Now, when these kind of things, so the movie may go and a new movie may come and it may be empathetic, but what they do is like you said, create a community which later on may become a little more silent or whatever, but it's there inbuilt in the DNA of these young boys who then become young men and then who sit in offices. Like we get to see a lot of these power constructs in even corporate industries and corporate ladders where there is very limited understanding of women colleagues. Women having very limited understanding of male colleagues. And it's almost like this men against women thing that happens. Again, that doesn't help any of us. I had a very senior, Ram Kumar, who was a CHRO of ICICI Bank. He was here and he's a feminist through and through, powerful, mother, very, very supportive wife. And he confessed himself that the first time he thought about period pain was when his daughter came and spoke to him, which is how disconnected we are, even when we think we are involved. And why entertainment becomes so important is because it leaves these worms in your body, and as adults, somewhere in your behavior, they move you into a certain direction to be a certain kind of person that only sees their own identities as the entire whole. You think your piece is the whole world. And that's the divide that happens. When you put out content like you do, you're almost like, chiseling. You're like the sonar in that sense. There's like little hammers. You're thinking you're going to say 10 things and 2 will land. There will be conversations, there will be awareness, but it's not going to sit and it's not like this hammer that goes and sits and say, oh, now I'm going to be a kind-hearted man, or a woman of a certain kind. So these are big setbacks that also come in the long game that you are playing. You can say 10 things and one thing happens and then everything is like derailed. In those moments, how do you go about your mission? Like, how do you plan for your next steps?
You don't have an option. Naghma, the point is, again, when there is such limited spaces and if that are created, no matter the number of setbacks, you just have to continue at it. You can't do anything about it. Like there are now, again, as I said, like almost like the token man syndrome now I am seeing, where I am invited to a lot of conversations about masculinity or gender, and I go to everyone. Why? Because I'm like, if this is the platform I'm getting, I will go everywhere.
Yeah.
I will talk about it as many times as needed, over and over and over again, and hope that over a period of time, these things can help someone in some way. Over a bit, like something might click in this conversation with somebody who's watching. One small thing might click here, one small thing might click there, and eventually this becomes again a tsunami of understanding and things start changing. But it needs to, at least we need to be at it. There is no other way. And again, I just feel like there is nobody coming to save us. I really genuinely feel like we have normalized a broken world because we are very happy with distractions like 10-minute delivery.
Yes.
उससे हम खुश हो जाते हैं. AI अगर हम मेरे ग्राफिक्स बना देगा, बहुत अच्छी बात है. अभी हम खुश हो गए लाइफ के अंदर. पैसे हैं नहीं घर खरीदने के. The homes our parents were able to buy, we don't have we can't even dream about. We can't dream about buying those homes.
Yeah.
We are living in the smallest of places in cities that are fully dug up, where there is noise all through, where there is no standard of living, and we get so happy about 10-minute delivery and we think that fixes things. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And if you need things to fix, either you fix it or nobody is going to.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I feel like it comes on all of us. And yes, again, I feel like especially people in media, if we have the power, privilege, what are we using it for? And if you're not using it for this, then why are you doing this? Do something else. No? Go and earn that money then. Don't waste this platform. And that's why I get so angry when I see news channels, I mean, journalism is broken. It is just, it's the worst. It's a curse. It's at the core of the rot of our society because of the narrative that news is setting in these days, misinformation is setting, just the kind of things that are given importance to be talked about. Air quality is dipping. You will make memes on Brian Johnson because he got up and went away from a podcast. But are you going to take the time to actually address the fact that all of us are,
impacted by this
poisonous air?
Yeah.
This is not normal. whatever we are living through in today's time is absolutely abnormal, but we've been coddled into this understanding that ये तो ठीक है ना, क्योंकि तुम्हें 10 minute delivery है, तुम्हें क्या problem है? India is great, you have UPI. Really, dude, come on.
Yeah.
Every NRI who comes and writes a Twitter thread, oh, I am so shocked by the development of India because, I can pay things through GPay. Stay here, no. Stay here, live here then. Why are you going back afterwards? No, because they know that this quality of life is not there. And we cannot question the quality of life because that means asking questions, and we are all so scared of authority that we are never going to ask those questions. So again, I think the answer to all of this is that whoever is in a capacity and who has the capacity and is in a place of privilege, if we are not using this privilege, this world is not going to exist for us only. We are going to lose out on the world. So it's for us to lose.
Yes. And storytelling has a very, very important
100%.
part. So, like you said, at one point, journalism was supposed to be that fourth pillar, was supposed to be the conscience keeper of how the world works. And now it's broken. How do we get more of what you're doing from people around? Like, see, it's an extraordinary thing for you to be a journalist, to face something yourself, but also think that there needs to be a structural solution to a personal problem. That's not a common thought. That's also something that we really need more people to act on. It was none of your business. You could have gone about it. There's enough people who have fixed themselves, and that itself is so tiring. Okay, and I mean, we need to also say it is exhausting.
It is. It very much is. Absolutely.
To break and fix oneself. And from that spot, if you think of the world and you're thinking of something that needs to go beyond yourself and engage with more, it's quite remarkable. And that needs to be said again and again. But we need more of this template. Like I'm almost thinking, how do we make a template of this and say we need many, many, many such things? Because there needs to be a pandemic of this kind.
No, I'm with you, and again, I think, I really believe in the power of young people. I've literally named my company Yuvaa. There's this really, when you are young and you write these essays in school, I've had a topic that has come very often. Fire is a necessary evil. And when you talk about that, you're like, hey, it can be used for cooking, it can be used for like
finishing
burning. You can burn things or you can cook things, right? And literally now, I would say to the next generation, and of course this is also a Gen Z term, cook. Cook stuff, right? Like you have journalism is whatever it is right now. I don't know if it can be fixed, to be very honest. I don't have much hope because again, the people who are in power over there are the ones who are hand in hand with the powerful. So they don't have any incentive to change things. But who can actually change things? It is the common person. It is a young person who has a voice and who has a platform, like, use these platforms, these social media platforms created by billionaires, use it against them. Use it to talk about the things that matter. Of course, I also know all of these social media. Like today, Mark Zuckerberg is sitting over there and going to Joe Rogan and saying that we need more masculine energy at the workplace. What he means to say is not that he needs more men in the workplace. He just needs that I need the freedom to be an asshole to anybody. That's what they mean by masculine energy. There's no other thing. What else could you imagine masculine? He's not talking about empathy over here. He's talking the exact opposite. That I don't get to be an asshole even though I'm rich. And I need more and he blamed Sheryl Sandberg. He said a woman came in power and what she really did was created a culture. What she really did was created a culture of accountability, and that is a problem to me.
That made us soft. And they had made us accountable, so we couldn't do what we really could have done at trying.
I can't be an asshole because now I have to be nice. And that is their big problem, right? But I still work with Facebook, Meta, Instagram, and I still feel like the platforms themselves are powerful and they can do powerful things, even if the person now leading them is saying all kinds of ridiculous things. And with that platform, and sometimes with those companies, I want to work and make sure that young people are empowered to use these platforms to create new systems, to create change, to talk about the things they're wrong and talk about it over and over again until there are people forced to take notice. Mental health today is such a huge conversation because the young constantly spoke about it. Depression and anxiety. And it started with teenagers, by the way. Teenagers are the one who constantly were talking about anxiety, about depression, and more people started recognizing it. And today we are able to have a conversation about therapy without anyone wincing, right? And if we do that enough about gender, if we do that enough about masculinity, if we do that enough about climate, people will be forced to at least have the conversation. Of course, then the big thing will be how do we now change things? How do we turn this into action? Which is always going to be a process, but at least start talking about it.
That's probably the only thing we can do in an environment, again, where DEI is now a bad word. Okay, that's a
Yeah.
but the fact is DEI was always a nice tag.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to but at least there was a tag.
Yeah.
What we have to do is have a system that actually starts working for itself.
Yeah.
Like you don't talk DEI, you do DEI. You don't, and that means again that the behavior across structures has to shift. That again, at senior levels, as boys become men, right? What is even at the senior man level, you see the same thing as a problem, that there is no talk about it. Like I ask from a man perspective.
I don't even think that, forget talk, I don't think there's understanding about it. So talk to bahut dur ki baat hai na. Understanding hai. When I started my company, a lot of well-meaning friends of mine would tell me that this would never work because what you're doing sounds like an NGO. Okay, so, and I was like, you have come from corporate culture. Why don't you just make money? And don't do things that are seen as empathetic. You know, nobody pays for empathy. Okay.
Why is empathy a bad word?
Exactly. You know, and I was always constantly told you're also creating a culture which is, what is, you want work-life balance. How will you do that? You're starting a startup, etc., etc. Today, we are a profitable company. We make, upwards of $2-3 million of revenue every year. We have 40 people. Majority of them are women. And people leave office at 7:38 after starting at 10:30, 11, by the way. So not starting at 8. Weekends are off. Everyone's living their life. End of the year, we give 10 days off. Jao chutti manao. And yet we are able to be profitable, and we are a company that is actually creating impact because it's possible.
It is possible.
Now, of course, if I want to turn this into a $20 million revenue company, then I will have to force everybody into something. But I'm also okay with $2-3 million because usse kaam ho raha hai. And acha kaam ho raha hai. And when I feel like we can scale this work up, I will hire more people to do that work versus asking the same 40 people now to do work worth $4-5 million of revenue, right? Because that's how I want to grow this company, and I care more about the impact. So again, I just feel, unfortunately, first of all, at a bare minimum level, I don't even think that people realize they have agency to change things. Second of all, I don't think that most people have the understanding that it is possible to have healthy cultures. Everybody has seen terrible cultures, so they think that's the
only way to.
It's also narratives. No, it all comes back to narratives. We believe in the story that is being told to us about everything. Corporate ऐसे ही काम करता है, culture ऐसे ही काम करता है, gender ऐसे ही काम करता है. If everybody is constantly saying this कि लड़के ऐसे होने चाहिए, लड़कियां ऐसे होनी चाहिए, any other gender has to be like this, the corporates have to be like this, there has to be 4-day work week is now a conversation because somebody is having it. But at the same time, in India, we are still like 6.5 day work week, right? Because we don't push back enough. And once we understand that all of us have a part to play and we have agency, then we start talking, then we have the action. So again, I feel like today, I think a lot of us are still at a place of awareness and acknowledgement, and that is a role to play. Get people to understand that this is an issue. Get them to understand you have a agency to fix this issue. And then once we get to that place, which I don't know, maybe take 5 years, maybe take 10 years, then we start working together and saying action. Of course, we also hope that some of us can, if we have that enough power and privilege, also work towards action on the side. But I feel like anybody who's responsible right now needs to be talking about this and have those uncomfortable conversations. They are uncomfortable, but beyond that discomfort is freedom. It really is.
And it's worth it.
It's absolutely worth it.
And as a boss in your company, so culture is something that can't stay with one person. It also is something that needs to be internalized in the blood of the company. Right? What as a boss, what do you have to do to let that happen?
I have to get out of the way, to be honest. After a point of time, I realized that I am great at vision setting. I'm great at talking about what we need to be done. But I was not great with processes, because I was not ironically, because I was too empathetic, to sometimes even have tough conversations with people. Because of which I realized much later that when you don't address people who are not working as well as the others, you are actually de-incentivizing the people who are working too much by saying, अगर मैं नहीं भी काम करता तब भी कुछ कहता नहीं बॉस, अगर कोई काम कर रहा है तो उसको तो it's not like the delta
मैं
is
काम
too
कर
high.
ही क्यों रहा हूँ?
हाँ, तो मैं क्यों करूँ? If this person also not working and they're still having a job and everything is going great in their life, they're still getting promoted because our boss is empathetic. So what is my incentive to work hard? So I'm demotivating the people who actually care about this thing by not having hard conversations with the people who don't care about it enough or who are not there for the right reasons or whatever it is, right? So the first thing I think I did was I knew that I'm good with creating that culture. I know what, but I was not good at making sure that everybody had accountability. So I got a team that did that. And now I am not even the CEO of the company. I don't care for designations, to be very honest, right? But I got a young CEO, Kevin, who is the person who is also empathetic. He was my student at Jai Hind, in fact. He's a ex-CNBC journalist, fantastic mind, fantastic heart, but somebody who is very good with ensuring process. As much as he is at making sure that the culture and everything is good, but he makes sure process is his number one thing. And I was, again, I think you have to be somewhere selfless enough to recognize that you might be the biggest problem for your company. So the moment I got out of the way and said, you be the CEO, I'll be the founder. So now we have a very nice thing going where he's the captain, I'm the coach. You have a problem, come to me, I will solve it. But if it's, if things need to be fixed, then Kevin's the right person to fix it. I will help you as a person. He will help the company too as resources. So again, it's about asking for help, which again sometimes men are very afraid of doing because they're like, "Arey, agar main CEO nahi banunga, if I am not the person who's getting the credit for changing everything, then you need things to work. Don't be so
when you
greedy."
speak to so many people, you're speaking to young, old, celebrity, everyone. If there's one thing that popped out for you from almost everyone, the most popular thing or most common thing that you noticed or were told, what would it be?
I think the biggest thing that I realize is that in my head, the reason that, as I said, we are doing all the work that we are doing is to create safe spaces, either for myself or for young people. When I have conversations with well-known celebrities also, and they get on a couch in front of me, I realize how much they also need this safe space. That has been the biggest thing that has blown my mind, that it could be Karan Johar, it could be Zakir Khan, it could be Bhuvan Bam, it could be Vicky Kaushal, it could be Nasiruddin Shah. Nasiruddin Shah coming on the show and saying, मुझे मेरे बाप ने आज तक हाथ नहीं लगाया after the time I was a child. He said that on my show. He told me later that I've not spoken about this anywhere. But he's not spoken about how his father did not show him affection.
Yeah.
Because nobody's asking those questions. And because I asked that question, he got to say it. He spoke about a dream, a recurring dream he has, that his father, who's passed away now, is in front of him and they're finally having a conversation. Imagine a person like Nasiruddin Shah being this vulnerable and having this conversation. So I think we also feel like we look at everybody as antagonists. And I feel like if we recognize that the heart of everybody is a human being, is a vulnerable human being, and if we create spaces for all of them to express themselves, I think the world will be better off for it. So safe spaces are necessary for everyone, no matter if they're powerless, powerful, everything.
Yes.
Right? And let's just do what we can to create those.
And you didn't just create it for yourself, and you're instrumental in creating that for so many people. Like, I wish I could bottle you up and distribute it.
You work with Yuvaa, Naghma, let's do it together.
Yes. No, I'm very, very interested. This has been a remarkable conversation, and so many things I heard again and again. One is I heard positive affirmation, which is so rare. It's so rare from women. It's so rare from men. When you're so clearly out there saying, I am this and I am that and I am fine with that, that's a very good space to be, and you're extending it to others. And what I really am picking up again and again from you is, yes, safe space, but everybody needs it.
Yeah.
Everyone needs it. And you'll be surprised the benefits that come out of people just being comfortable in their own skin so they can extend it to others.
Yeah.
So yes, thank you for such a meaningful conversation.
And thank you so much for having me. And again, as I said, I think we require leaders like you to put these conversations out in the public domain.
Yeah.
Because the more people get aware of it, the more they are moved to first understanding it themselves and fixing things in their own life, and then of course to further action to change the world around us. And
incidentally, that's been one of my first discoveries also, that most people don't even know.
Yeah.
It's like ignorance. Most people are not cruel or mean or waking up in the
Ignorant.
morning and thinking आज मैं उसका जीना आराम कर दूंगा. You know, there is no okay, और वो औरत है उसको मैं आज तबाह कर दूंगा. Yeah, that's not, most people are not like that. It's pure ignorance.
I'm
And
with you.
and they've never gotten support, and so they don't even know how to think about support and giving it to others. So there's a whole ecosystem of healing that is really required to get men to be confident men and women to be confident women and everyone to be confident themselves.
So well said.
Thank you for being a big advocate of this, and more power to you. And we will be seeing you more again. Thank you.
I hope so.
Thank you.